Ever feel like kind of like you're building a life, but without a blueprint? Like putting in the work, but not sure it's going towards something, I don't know, solid?
Yeah, I get it.
Well, get this. Today's deep dive is going to take us to a kind of unexpected source for guidance. Masonic teachings.
No kidding.
Nope. We're cracking open Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma, specifically the section on, get this, becoming a perfect master.
Okay, hold on a second. Before anyone listening thinks we're asking them to, like, don a velvet robe and start learning, secret handshakes.
Right, right.
Let me clarify. The term perfect master here, it's not about actually being perfect because, well, who is?
Exactly.
It's more about that striving for excellence,
Yeah.
like how we live, how we work, that kind of thing.
Okay, makes sense. So, like, where do we even begin building this excellent life then?
Well, Pike starts with two things. Might seem kind of simple at first, but they're incredibly foundational. He talks about industry and honesty, and he doesn't beat around the bush either. He says, and I love this quote, he says that bees, like actual bees, they only respect the hard workers in the hive, not the drones, the ones just buzzing around taking up space.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a really striking image. And it makes you think about like, our own lives, right? We find dignity in honest work, putting ourselves into a task, contributing something of value. That's where it's at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Pike, he really believed that. That industry, that consistent effort, that's the bedrock, the foundation of a life that has meaning.
So no shortcuts then. Got to put in the reps, whether it's at work, in our relationships, even our own, I don't know, self-growth.
Exactly. Think of it this way. If you were building a house, you'd want a strong foundation.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Well, industry, that's like laying those bricks, day after day, putting in the effort to make something that lasts.
That makes a lot of sense. What about honesty, though? How does that fit into this whole, like, building a life analogy?
So honesty, it's about making sure those bricks, they're laid straight and true. Approaching our work with integrity, right? Making sure that what we build is solid, trustworthy, the real deal. And Pike really believed that honesty wasn't just about, like, avoiding telling lies. It was bigger than that. It was about aligning our actions with our values,
Oh.
like in every single aspect of our lives.
So it's not just about being truthful with other people. It's also about being honest with ourselves, about the effort we put in, our intentions, all that.
Yes, exactly. And that's where things get super interesting because Pike goes beyond those obvious examples of honesty, like being truthful in business and stuff, and dives into this deeper, more internal kind of honesty, like being straight with ourselves about what we've actually earned,
Right.
whether that's recognition, reward, even just a sense of accomplishment.
So no taking shortcuts or trying to get praise we haven't really earned.
Exactly. And this is actually where Pike's ideas, I think, they become incredibly relevant to us today,
Yeah.
even in a world that's totally different from his. Like in this world of social media, it's so easy to get caught up in chasing validation, rewards, things that, if we're honest, we haven't really earned. But Pike's right there reminding us, true fulfillment, that comes from aligning our actions with our values, not from chasing after external validation.
It's so true. It's crazy easy to get caught up in appearances, especially, you said it, online. But Pike's saying the real deal, the lasting satisfaction, comes from knowing we've earned it. Our successes are built on honest effort and integrity.
Absolutely. And it goes back to that emphasis on industry, right? It's not just about working hard just to work hard. It's about finding dignity and purpose in creating something of value. That could be a successful business, yeah, but also a loving relationship or even just, a well-lived life, really.
Hard work isn't the enemy. It's actually the path to building something real. I like that.
Yeah. Exactly. And Pike's right there with us. But he also warns us against forgetting this principle. He actually describes idleness. And he doesn't just call it laziness. He calls it the burial of a living man.
Oh, wow.
It's heavy.
Intense. It really makes you think about all that wasted potential, all those dreams and aspirations that just, I don't know, never see the light of day because we're stuck.
And that's exactly his point. Unfulfilled potential, wasted time. That's the real danger of idleness. He's reminding us we have to cultivate our talents, engage with the world, make something of the time that we've got.
So how do we do that? How do we avoid becoming one of Pike's buried men?
He actually gives us a framework, a pretty practical one, too. He calls it the 24-hour rule.
24-hour. Okay, I'm listening. Tell me more about this.
So think about dividing your day into 3 equal parts. 8 hours, we've got work. 8 hours for charity or, community stuff, being involved, and 8 hours for self-improvement, reflecting, that kind of. Yeah.
8 hours of self-improvement? That's a lot. Like on top of everything else, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of.
I know, right? At first, it does seem like, whoa, that's intense. But before you run for the hills, remember, Pike didn't mean we got to be totally rigid, blocking out our schedules precisely like this. It's more about taking stock, looking at our priorities. Are we really giving enough attention to each of these? Work, community, our own development, all of that in a way that feels, I don't know, balanced, right? Like it's actually fulfilling, not just another checklist.
So less about a literal schedule, more like a mental framework, a way to think about a well-rounded life.
Exactly. Think about like a balanced diet, right? You need protein, carbs, your healthy fats to really thrive. Well, Pike's 24-hour rule, it suggests that for a truly fulfilling life, we need a similar kind of balance in what we put our energy into. We've got to have focused work to create, contribute, provide for ourselves, all that. But we also need connection, giving back to our communities, so it's not just all about us. And that sense of belonging, having a purpose bigger than just ourselves. And then we need time for us, right? To learn, to think, for personal growth, so we keep evolving, becoming the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah, it's a great analogy. I love that because, yeah, you neglect any one of those areas for too long and, well, you start feeling a little malnourished. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And this is where his whole concept of the soul's alchemy, that comes in.
Soul's alchemy. Okay, now we're getting kind of out there, a little esoteric.
It sounds way more mystical than it actually is, I promise.
Yeah.
Pike, he uses this really beautiful analogy. He talks about the soul growing like an oak tree. So just like a tree, absorbs sunlight, takes in the rain, all the nutrients from the soil to grow strong and resilient. Our souls, they need something similar.
Yeah.
They need knowledge, they need experiences to really flourish. But, and this is the key, a tree doesn't just sit there hoarding sunlight.
Right.
In the same way, our souls, we can't just passively soak up information. We've got to actively work with it, process it, make it part of us, turn it into something real.
So not just cramming our brains with facts, but actually using that knowledge, applying it to our lives, letting it actually shape us.
Exactly. Information into action.
Yeah.
Insight into wisdom, that kind of thing. Think of it like this. You could read every book there is about carpentry, right?
Right.
Become a total expert on, wood types, building techniques, everything. But you wouldn't actually be a skilled carpenter until you pick up a hammer, get the nails, start actually building something.
That's a great point. It's the doing, right? So how do we take this soul's alchemy and actually use it in our own lives? What's the bridge between, like, learning something and then putting it into action?
It starts with being deliberate, making the effort. Think about something you learned recently, maybe something that really got you curious or challenged the way you look at things. Got it. Now the question is, how could you apply that knowledge? How could you use this new understanding to make a positive impact, even a small one, but make it real?
So it's on us to find those opportunities, to actually put our knowledge to work, to experiment, make mistakes along the way, and learn from it all.
That's it. And this takes us to one of the most important principles, I think, in everything Pike teaches, and it's really at the heart of this perfect master idea. Honesty, but in everything.
We talked about honesty already, though. How does that tie into this soul's alchemy?
Because real honesty, true honesty, it's not just about what we say to other people, it's about what we tell ourselves.
Right.
About our effort, our intentions, the progress we're making on this whole journey of growth. Remember how Pike talked about receiving no wages that are not our due? That idea, it's all about this alignment between our actions and our values, making sure we're not cutting corners or wanting praise for stuff we didn't really earn.
So it's about approaching everything we do with integrity. Every task, interaction, just our whole way of being in the world. Not taking the easy way out, not trying to make ourselves look better than we are, and not wanting credit for work we didn't really do.
Yes. And Pike goes even deeper into this, looking at all these different sides of honesty in everyday life. Honesty in contracts, how we price things, the promises we make, all these practical ways this virtue shows up.
So it's not some abstract, lofty idea. It's about being a person of your word, being fair in your dealings, building that reputation, that you're someone people can trust.
Exactly. And this is what makes his teaching so incredibly relevant, even now. Right. Think about how important trust is in the world today. We depend on it for almost everything, online, in business, even just in our relationships.
It's true, and yet it feels like trust is getting harder and harder to find, more fragile.
Exactly. That's why what Pike's saying about honesty is so important. Recognizing that trust, it has to be built on a foundation of integrity. It's about consistently doing what we said we'd do, matching our actions to our words, being that person that others know they can count on, that our word means something.
So it's bigger than just not being dishonest. It's about cultivating this deeper sense of integrity in everything.
Exactly. And that's not always easy. Pike doesn't pretend it is. Choosing honesty, it can be tough, especially when we're tempted or we feel pressure to compromise. He used these great examples. A merchant who lies about what they're selling just to make a sale. A gambler who's happy to profit off someone else's loss. Just to show how easily we can slip into these dishonest patterns, often without even realizing what we're doing.
Oh, yeah, those traps are everywhere, especially if we're just thinking about ourselves, what we want.
Exactly. And that's why he talks about having this strong moral compass.
Yeah.
We got to constantly be checking in with ourselves, making sure that what we're doing on the outside lines up with what we believe deep down.
So can't just go through the motions, got to be intentional about it, about living a life of integrity.
Exactly. And that takes self-reflection, real self-reflection,
Mhm.
asking the tough questions. Am I being honest with myself about why I'm doing this? Am I taking shortcuts that go against my values? Am I trying to get recognition I haven't really earned?
Oof, those are tough. But important if we want to build a life that's actually meaningful, a life of purpose, of integrity. It's like Pike's urging us to take a good, hard look in the mirror and ask, am I really living in line with my values?
That's it. That's the heart of becoming a perfect master. It's not about being perfect, because none of us are. It's about striving to live each day with intention, with integrity, with that commitment to being the best versions of ourselves.
It's the journey, not the destination. I like that.
Exactly. And that journey, just like building one of those, you know, grand Masonic temples, it takes constant effort, never giving up on honesty, and being open to learning and growing every step of the way.
Oh, I love that analogy. Building a life of purpose and integrity, brick by a metaphorical brick, it's great. But how do we stay motivated on that journey? Because it's got to be tough sometimes, right? That's the real question, right? Like, how do we stay motivated when things get tough? When we hit those bumps in the road or we're tempted to just, I don't know, take the easy way out.
It actually goes back to what we were saying before about finding that dignity, that sense of purpose in doing honest work. It's about remembering that everything, every brick we lay, every act of integrity, every step towards, being a better version of ourselves, it all adds up to something bigger.
So it's like connecting what we do every day to something bigger, a larger purpose.
Exactly. And that purpose, it's going to look different for everyone.
Right.
For some people, it might be building that successful business, the one that provides for their family, gives back to the community. For others, it might be about those loving relationships, or making a difference through activism or art or whatever they're passionate about. The key is figuring out what lights that fire for you, what gives you that feeling of, this is it, this is me, this is what I'm meant to be doing. That alignment between your actions and your values, that's where the real juice is.
It's about finding the thing that makes you excited to get out of bed in the morning, even when that alarm is like screaming at you.
Exactly. And remembering that all of this stuff we've been talking about, industry, honesty, integrity, these aren't just like nice sounding words. They're the actual tools. They're what we use to build meaningful lives, brick by brick, day after day.
I love that. So as we start to wrap up our deep dive here into this wisdom of the perfect master, what's the one thing you really want listeners to take away from this?
Remember those powerful words from Pike. Receive no wages that are not your due. Let that really sink in. Let that be your guide. Try to live every day in a way that reflects your best self, your highest values. Because that's the truth. Real fulfillment comes from walking the walk, from aligning those actions with your aspirations.
Beautifully said. And to everyone listening, as you go about your week, we'll leave you with this to think about. What's one area of your life where you can put that principle into action? Where can you receive no wages that are not your due?
It might be something small, a little tweak, a shift in how you look at things, or maybe it's a big, bold step towards really living those values. Whatever it is, go for it.
Embrace the journey, because even those small acts of integrity, they can have a ripple effect. You start creating a more meaningful life, a more fulfilling life for yourself and for everyone around you. Until next time, keep diving deep.